The voice that emerged from the researcher's throat was layered with harmonics that no human vocal cords could produce. Around the chamber, the other meditating figures turned their heads in perfect unison, their white eyes now glowing with the same bioluminescent patterns that pulsed through the Harbinger's core. "You carry the memory songs of the architects," the collective voice continued, speaking through multiple mouths simultaneously, their final gift to a universe that refused to learn. Maya felt Zephyr's battle instincts surge through their neural link, but she held him back with a thought. They were surrounded, outnumbered, and facing an intelligence that had already begun assimilating one of the galaxy's most secure research facilities. Raw aggression would only get them killed. "You know what we are," Maya said, stepping closer to the crystalline core while keeping her hand near the scanner that contained the architect virus. "Then you know why we're here." "Indeed," the silence replied through its human puppets. "You are the hybrid consciousness the architects hoped would emerge, a bridge between species that could unite resistance against our expansion. But you are too late, small guardians. This galaxy's assimilation has already begun." Through their shared connection, Maya felt Zephyr accessing tactical information from the architect knowledge. The dragon's mind worked through battle scenarios with mechanical precision. But every analysis reached the same conclusion. They could not fight their way out of this trap. "The architects failed because they could not adapt," Maya said, playing for time while she prepared the virus upload. "They were too rigid, too bound by their own assumptions. Humanity and the Draconian Empire won't make the same mistakes." A sound like crystalline laughter echoed through the chamber. "Humanity and the Draconians are already making those mistakes. Even now, fleets from both your governments are en route to study more Harbinger vessels that have conveniently appeared throughout your territories. Each ship carries the seeds of willing collaboration." The implications hit Maya like a physical blow. The silence hadn't sent just one Harbinger. They had orchestrated a coordinated first contact that would simultaneously compromise multiple major powers. By the time anyone realized the threat, it would be too late to mount unified resistance. However, the collective voice continued. "You present an interesting development. The neural link between your species creates possibilities we had not anticipated. You could serve as prototypes for a new form of assimilation, willing integration rather than hostile conquest." Admiral Chen stepped forward, her movements now clearly controlled by external intelligence. "Join us willingly, and your species will be granted elevated status in the new order. Resist and they will face the same fate as the architects." Maya felt the architect virus burning in her mind, ready for deployment, but she also realized that releasing it now would only delay the inevitable. The silence was already too well established, too deeply rooted in the station's systems. They needed a different approach. Through the neural link, she shared a desperate plan with Zephyr. His mental presence radiated alarm but also understanding. What she proposed was risky beyond measure, but it might be their only chance to warn the galaxy about the true nature of the threat. "You're right about one thing," Maya said, taking another step toward the core. "The neural link between Zephyr and me does create new possibilities." She placed her hand on the interface panel, feeling the alien intelligence immediately attempt to penetrate her consciousness. But instead of fighting the invasion, she opened her mind fully, allowing the silence to see everything, her memories, her fears, her knowledge of human and draconian capabilities. What the silence didn't realize was that the neural link worked both ways. As it probed Maya's mind, she and Zephyr were learning about its structure, its weaknesses, and most importantly, its central communication network. "Fascinating," the collective voice murmured as alien thoughts flowed through Maya's consciousness. "Your species possesses remarkable neural plasticity. The integration possibilities are—" The voice cut off abruptly as Maya and Zephyr struck simultaneously. Instead of attacking the Harbinger vessel directly, they channeled the architect virus through the silence's own communication network, using the alien intelligence's probe of Maya's mind as a pathway into its core systems. The crystal pulsed wildly as the virus spread through the silence's network like wildfire. The possessed researchers collapsed as their neural links were severed, while Admiral Chen stumbled backward with confusion replacing the alien serenity in her eyes. "Impossible," the silence shrieked through failing speakers. "The architect codes were destroyed with their civilization." "No," Maya gasped, feeling the neural feedback burning through her brain. "They were preserved in the Guardian protocols." And now every Harbinger vessel in this galaxy is going to learn what happens when you underestimate the power of cooperation. Through the virus's propagation, Maya could sense Harbinger vessels throughout human and draconian space, suddenly going dark as their communication networks were corrupted. The Silence's coordinated invasion was collapsing into isolated, vulnerable units that could be dealt with individually, but the victory came at a cost. The neural feedback from channeling the virus was tearing through Maya's brain like liquid fire. She collapsed to her knees, blood streaming from her nose as her consciousness began to fragment. Zephyr caught her before she could hit the floor, his massive claws surprisingly gentle. "Maya, stay with me. The link is destabilizing." Through their fading connection, Maya felt Zephyr trying to take the full burden of the neural damage on himself. Even facing death, his first instinct was to protect his partner, but she wouldn't let him sacrifice himself for her. "Together," she whispered, gripping his claw with trembling fingers. "We do this together like everything else." They shared the neural damage equally, their hybrid consciousness proving more resilient than either biology alone. The architect virus had done its work. The immediate threat was neutralized, but the greater war was just beginning. Admiral Chen shook her head as her natural personality reasserted itself. "What happened?" "The last thing I remember was entering the alien vessel for the first inspection." "Admiral," Maya said, struggling to her feet with Zephyr's support, "you need to evacuate this station immediately and quarantine everyone who had contact with the Harbinger vessel. Then contact Fleet Command. Every government in the galaxy needs to know about the Silence." As emergency klaxons began to wail and the Harbinger vessel started its death throes, Maya realized that their work as Guardians was far from over. They had won the first battle, but the war for the galaxy's survival had only just begun. The neural link between human and dragon had proven stronger than either species could have achieved alone. And in that strength, Maya glimpsed the future the architects had envisioned, not human or draconian supremacy, but cooperation between species that could face any threat the universe offered. The healing had become something greater than either of them had imagined, and the galaxy would never be the same. Maya and Zephyr exchanged alarmed glances as their ship settled into the docking bay. Through their neural link, they shared the same terrible realization. The station's response had been too quick, too accommodating. No military installation would allow unscheduled access to a classified discovery without extensive verification. "The Harbinger vessel has already begun Phase 2, Maya whispered, her hand moving instinctively to the scanner hidden in her medical kit. "It's influencing the station's personnel." Zephyr's massive form tensed as they prepared to disembark. "Stay close to me. If the influence waves are active, they may affect you differently than they affect me." The docking bay doors opened to reveal a welcoming committee that sent chills down Maya's spine. The humans, draconians, and other species present all wore identical expressions of calm satisfaction, their eyes holding a subtle glassy quality that spoke of external influence. At their head stood a human admiral Maya recognized from her military medical training, Admiral Sarah Chen, no relation despite the shared surname, but a woman known for her sharp intelligence and fierce independence. Lord Commander Zephyr, "Dr. Chen," Admiral Chen said, her voice carrying an odd musical quality, "we've been expecting you. The artifact is eager to meet you." Maya felt ice form in her veins. Ships, even alien ones, were not eager to meet anyone. Through the neural link, she sensed Zephyr's battle-trained instincts screaming warnings as they were escorted through corridors that seemed somehow wrong. The lighting was too dim. The shadows fell at impossible angles, and a subtle vibration thrummed through the deck plating. "Admiral," Maya said carefully, "what's the current status of the research teams aboard the artifact?" "Oh, they're making wonderful progress," Admiral Chen replied with that same unnaturally serene expression. "The ship has been teaching them so many fascinating things. Technologies we never imagined, ways of thinking that expand consciousness beyond previous limitations." Maya's scanner, hidden in her palm, was going wild. Energy readings, unlike anything in standard databases, flooded the small display. The influence waves were so strong they were beginning to affect the station's basic systems. But the affected personnel seemed oblivious to the danger. They reached the docking bay where the Harbinger vessel waited, and Maya had to suppress a gasp of horror. The ship was beautiful in an alien way, curves that flowed like liquid metal, surfaces that seemed to shift between organic and technological. But to eyes enhanced with architect knowledge, it was clearly a predator, its very structure designed to lure curious minds into contact. "Magnificent, isn't it?" Admiral Chen said, leading them toward the vessel's entrance. "The research teams have been living aboard for the past week, learning from its systems. The ship responds to direct neural contact, sharing knowledge freely." Maya felt Zephyr's alarm spike through their connection. The architect records had been clear. Direct neural contact with a Harbinger vessel was exactly how the Silence began the assimilation process. Every researcher who had interfaced with the ship was now compromised. "We'd like to examine the vessel externally first," Zephyr said, his voice carefully controlled. "Standard draconian protocol requires biological scans before boarding unknown ships." Admiral Chen's smile never wavered, but Maya caught a flicker of something else in her eyes. Annoyance or perhaps calculation. "Of course, Lord Commander, though I think you'll find the ship quite eager to welcome you aboard once you're ready." As they walked around the Harbinger vessel, Maya discreetly took readings with her scanner. The results confirmed her worst fears. The ship was not just active, it was growing, its influence waves becoming stronger by the hour. Worse, it was beginning to adapt the station's own technology, converting defense systems and communications arrays to its purposes. Through their neural link, Maya shared her findings with Zephyr. His response came as images and tactical assessments rather than words. The station was already compromised beyond salvation, but they might be able to prevent the influence from spreading to the fleet vessels docked nearby. "Admiral," Maya said, keeping her voice steady, "I'm detecting some unusual energy patterns. For safety, shouldn't we evacuate non-essential personnel from this section?" Admiral Chen's head tilted slightly, like a bird considering prey. "Dr. Chen, there's no danger here. The ship has assured us that its presence brings only benefit, knowledge, advancement, evolution beyond our current limitations." The word evolution sent another chill through Maya. According to the architect records, that was exactly how the Silence described the assimilation process. Evolution into something greater. What they didn't mention was that the evolved beings lost all individual will and creativity, becoming mere extensions of the collective consciousness. "We need to see the ship's central core," Zephyr announced suddenly. "Draconian military doctrine requires inspection of propulsion and control systems." Maya understood his plan immediately. If they could reach the Harbinger's central intelligence, they might be able to plant the virus program the architects had embedded in their shared knowledge, a digital weapon designed specifically to combat the Silence's technology. "Admiral," Chen led them aboard the vessel, and Maya immediately felt the oppressive weight of alien influence pressing against her mind. Only the neural link with Zephyr seemed to provide any protection, their hybrid consciousness proving resistant to the ship's attempts at manipulation. The interior of the Harbinger was a maze of organic corridors that pulsed with bioluminescent light. They passed several research teams that barely acknowledged their presence. The scientists' attention completely focused on alien interfaces that seemed to be growing into their hands and skulls. "The integration process is remarkable," Admiral Chen explained with disturbing enthusiasm. "Direct neural interface allows for perfect knowledge transfer. The volunteers report expanded consciousness, access to information spanning millions of years." Maya wanted to scream at the casual mention of volunteers. These people had been manipulated into offering themselves as test subjects for an invasion force. But she forced herself to remain calm, knowing that any sign of resistance would trigger the ship's defenses. They reached the central chamber, and Maya felt her breath catch. The core of the Harbinger vessel was beautiful and terrible, a crystalline structure that pulsed with patterns of light that seemed to bypass the eyes and speak directly to the brain. Around it, a dozen researchers sat in meditation-like poses, their heads tilted back and their eyes rolled up to show only white. "The core is eager to meet you," Admiral Chen said, gesturing toward interface panels that had grown from the floor like organic mushrooms. "It has questions about draconian physiology and human neural adaptability." Maya felt the weight of architect knowledge pressing against her consciousness as she approached the core. Through the neural link, she and Zephyr prepared to release the digital virus that might be their only hope of stopping the Harbinger. But as she reached toward the interface panel, one of the meditating researchers suddenly spoke. "Dr. Maya Chen," the researcher said in a voice that belonged to no human throat, We have been waiting for you. 6 months had passed since the neural link was established, and Maya had learned to navigate her new existence with careful precision. She and Zephyr had taken up residence on a remote research station in the Helix Nebula, officially conducting joint xenobiological studies while actually preparing for humanity's greatest challenge. The station, designated Research Platform Omega, had been abandoned for years before they claimed it. Its isolation made it perfect for their purposes. No curious officials, no monitoring equipment, and enough space for Zephyr to move comfortably. Maya had used her medical credentials to requisition supplies, while Zephyr's Imperial connections provided advanced draconian technology that she was supposedly studying. Through their neural link, they had learned to share knowledge with increasing sophistication. Maya could now access Zephyr's memories of draconian military tactics and technology, while he could understand human approaches to problem-solving and innovation that had never occurred to his species. The combination was proving more powerful than either had anticipated. Maya stood in the station's main laboratory, surrounded by hybrid technology that would have been impossible without their unique collaboration. Screens displayed star charts marking the predicted approach routes of the Silence, while sensor arrays of her own design monitored subspace for the telltale distortions that would herald the arrival of scout probes. Maya. Zephyr's voice rumbled from the chamber's entrance. We have a problem. She turned to see the dragon carrying a data pad, his expression grim. Over the months, she had learned to read his moods through both visual cues and their mental connection. Right now, both sources told her the same thing. Something had gone very wrong. What is it? She asked, setting down the quantum resonance detector she had been calibrating. I've been monitoring communications from both our governments. 3 days ago, a human exploration vessel found something in the Andromeda sector. A derelict ship of unknown origin. The description matches what the architects called harbinger vessels. Maya felt ice forming in her stomach. According to the alien knowledge they carried, harbinger vessels were the Silence's first wave of exploration. They would study local technology and biology, then report back to the main force with detailed plans for assimilation. Have they brought it back for study? Maya asked, though she already knew the answer from Zephyr's expression. Worse. The ship is being studied jointly by human and draconian scientists on Research Station Prometheus, less than 20 light-years from here. If what the architects told us is true, that ship is not just a scout, it's a trap. Through their neural link, Zephyr shared the detailed reports he had intercepted. The Harbinger vessel appeared to be completely inert, showing no signs of active technology. Teams of researchers were already aboard, marveling at the organic architecture and attempting to understand its propulsion systems. They have no idea what they're dealing with, Maya said, her mind racing through possibilities. We have to warn them. How? Zephyr asked pointedly. We contact them and explain that we have alien knowledge gained through an illegal neural experiment. Even if they believed us, both our governments would immediately classify us as security threats. Maya began pacing, a habit she had developed during their months of collaboration. Then we go there ourselves. If we can't convince them with words, maybe we can show them the evidence directly. Maya, Research Station Prometheus is heavily guarded. It's a joint military installation with representatives from 6 different species. We can't simply arrive unannounced. Actually, Maya said, stopping her pacing as an idea formed. We might be able to. You're still officially a Lord Commander of the Draconian Empire, and I'm still technically a medical researcher. We could request access to study the biological aspects of the discovery. Zephyr's golden eyes narrowed as he considered the plan. It's extremely risky. If we're discovered, both our governments will disavow us. Worse, if the Harbinger vessel is already active, we could be walking into a trap ourselves. Do we have a choice? Maya asked. The architect's records were clear. Once a Harbinger vessel begins its analysis, it becomes increasingly difficult to contain. If we wait much longer, it might be too late. Through their mental connection, Maya felt Zephyr weighing the risks against their responsibility as guardians. Finally, he nodded slowly. Very well. But we approach this carefully. I'll use my military credentials to request a joint inspection, citing concerns about potential biological contamination. You'll be my human medical advisor. Over the next 2 days, they prepared meticulously. Maya packed specialized scanning equipment that could detect the energy signatures the architects had identified as belonging to the Silence. Zephyr updated his military credentials and prepared cover stories that would explain their sudden interest in the discovery. The journey to Research Station Prometheus took 8 hours through hyperspace. Maya spent the time reviewing everything the architect knowledge had taught them about Harbinger vessels. They were not truly ships in any conventional sense, but rather biological constructs designed to appear harmless while conducting deep scans of local technology and biology. According to the architects, Maya said as they approached the station, the Harbinger will begin Phase 2 of its analysis, once it has determined the basic technological level of the local species. That's when it becomes actively dangerous. How will we know if it's reached that point? Zephyr asked, his claws dancing over the ship's controls with casual expertise. The vessel will begin emitting what the architects called influence waves, subtle alterations, to local space-time that can affect the behavior of nearby technology. Electronic systems will start malfunctioning in specific patterns. Research Station Prometheus appeared on their view screen as a massive orbital platform bristling with defensive weapons and docking bays. Maya could see several research vessels already docked, along with military escorts from multiple species. This is Lord Commander Zephyr of the Draconian Empire, Zephyr announced over the communication array, requesting immediate docking clearance for joint biological inspection of the recovered artifact. The response came quickly, too quickly, Maya realized with growing alarm. Military installations normally required extensive authorization for unexpected visits. Lord Commander, you are cleared for docking at Bay 7. Medical teams are standing by to escort you to the artifact. The neural link stabilized after what felt like hours but had been only minutes. Maya opened her eyes to find herself lying on the docking bay floor, her head cradled in one of Zephyr's massive claws. The dragon's golden eyes showed a clarity she hadn't seen since their first meeting. But there was something else there too, a connection that went deeper than mere gratitude. It worked, Zephyr breathed, his voice filled with wonder. The pain, it's gone, but I can still feel the knowledge organized now, comprehensible. Maya sat up slowly, her own mind reeling from the experience. She could feel Zephyr's presence at the edge of her consciousness, not intrusive but undeniably there. More disturbing was her awareness of the alien knowledge they now shared. Vast databases of information about technologies, star charts, and most importantly, warnings about the approaching threat called the Silence. The neural link created a symbiotic relationship, Maya said, her medical training helping her process what had happened. My brain acts as a translator and buffer, while yours serves as the primary storage matrix. We're sharing the cognitive load. Zephyr rose to his feet with movements that were fluid and powerful, no longer trembling with pain and weakness. His scales had already begun to regain their lustrous emerald shine. Dr. Chen, Maya, what we have done goes beyond healing. We have created something unprecedented. Maya nodded, still struggling to comprehend the magnitude of their situation. Through the neural link, she could access fragments of the alien knowledge, but only what Zephyr consciously shared with her. The ancient race that had created the artifact called themselves the Architects, and they had faced the Silence 3 million years ago. We need to contact the authorities, Maya said, reaching for her communicator. The information we've gained, the warnings about the Silence, every spacefaring civilization needs to know. Zephyr's massive head shook slowly. Maya, you don't understand what we've become. The neural link has changed us both permanently. You now carry alien genetic markers that will be detectable to any advanced scanner. To most governments, we would be seen as contaminated, possibly hostile. The reality of their situation began to sink in. Maya realized that her life as she had known it was over. She could never return to normal human society, not with alien knowledge literally rewired into her brain and a permanent mental connection to a member of the Draconian Empire. Then what do we do? She asked, though part of her already knew the answer. We honor the purpose the architects intended, Zephyr replied, his voice taking on a formal tone. We become guardians, watchers for signs of the Silence's return. The knowledge we carry suggests they will arrive within the next 50 to 100 years. Through their mental link, Maya felt Zephyr sharing more of the alien memories. The Silence was not a single entity but a collective consciousness that spread across space like a virus, converting advanced civilizations into extensions of itself. They used each conquered species' own technology against them, turning their greatest achievements into weapons of assimilation. But we can't face this alone, Maya protested. We need allies, resources, support from our respective governments. Agreed, Zephyr said. But we must be careful how we approach them. The Draconian Empire values strength above all else. They will see my transformation as either a powerful asset or a dangerous contamination. Your human authorities will likely respond with fear and containment protocols. Maya's communicator chimed with an incoming transmission from Captain Rodriguez. She accepted the call and her captain's worried face appeared on the small screen. Maya, we've been monitoring some unusual energy readings from the mining station. Are you all right? You've been out of contact for hours. I'm fine, Captain, Maya replied, acutely aware that she was about to begin a web of half-truths that would define the rest of her life. The treatment was successful. Lord Commander Zephyr has made a full recovery. That's wonderful news. When are you returning to the ship? Maya glanced at Zephyr, feeling his thoughts through their connection. They both understood that everything had changed. Captain, I need to request extended leave. There are complications with the treatment that require ongoing monitoring. Captain Rodriguez's expression grew concerned. Maya, you're talking about staying with a Draconian battle commander. I can't authorize that kind of risk. Sir, I'm formally requesting reassignment to long-term xenobiological research, Maya said, using the bureaucratic language she knew Rodriguez would have to respect. The discoveries I've made here could revolutionize our understanding of alien physiology. Through the neural link, she felt Zephyr's approval of her approach. He understood human bureaucracy better than she had expected. After several minutes of discussion, Captain Rodriguez reluctantly agreed to submit her request through proper channels. Maya knew it would take weeks for the paperwork to process, buying them time to figure out their next steps. When the communication ended, Zephyr was studying her with those penetrating golden eyes. You sacrificed your old life to save mine. Why? Maya considered the question seriously. Because it was the right thing to do, and because I think the knowledge we now carry is too important to let personal concerns override our responsibility. The architects chose their guardians well, Zephyr said with something that might have been respect. But Maya, you must understand what we've become makes us something new. Neither fully human nor draconian, but something else entirely. As if to emphasize his point, Maya suddenly found herself understanding fragments of the draconian language that she had never studied. Through their connection, Zephyr was unconsciously sharing his linguistic knowledge with her. We need to learn to control this link, Maya said, pressing her fingers to her temples as unfamiliar memories flickered through her mind. And we need to start preparing for what's coming. Zephyr nodded gravely. The architect's records indicate that the Silence sends advanced scouts before their main force arrives. Small probes that study each civilization's weaknesses and adapt their approach accordingly. How will we recognize these scouts? Maya asked. Through their mental connection, Zephyr shared an image that made her blood run cold. Organic-looking ships that seemed to phase in and out of normal space, leaving behind them a trail of dead worlds where all technology had been turned against its creators. We'll know them when we see them, Zephyr said grimly. The question is whether we'll be ready. As Maya looked around the industrial docking bay that had become the site of her transformation, she realized that her career as a simple healer was over. She was now something unprecedented, a human draconian, hybrid consciousness carrying the knowledge of an extinct civilization and the responsibility for preparing the galaxy for its greatest threat. The real work was just beginning. Maya's laboratory aboard the Asclepius had never felt smaller. Equipment designed for standard humanoid biology looked inadequate next to the biological samples she'd collected from Zephyr. The dragon's blood alone required specialized containment. It literally glowed with an inner fire that her instruments could barely measure. For 3 days, she had worked without meaningful sleep, surviving on stimulants and determination. Captain Rodriguez had tried to convince her to rest, but Maya knew time was running out. Each analysis revealed the same terrifying truth. The alien knowledge was consuming Zephyr from the inside out, rewriting his very DNA with information his body couldn't process. Her latest test results displayed across multiple screens showed cellular breakdown accelerating. The alien artifact hadn't just given Zephyr knowledge, it had tried to transform him into something capable of containing that knowledge. The process was killing him, but it was also creating something unprecedented in known biology. A soft chime announced an incoming transmission from the mining station. Zephyr's image appeared on her screen, and Maya's heart sank at the visible deterioration. His scales had lost more of their luster, and his golden eyes seemed dimmer than before. Human healer. Zephyr's voice carried a tremor she hadn't heard before. I fear I may not have much time left. The episodes are becoming more frequent. Episodes. Maya leaned forward, abandoning her current analysis. I lose consciousness and awaken to find things changed. Yesterday I discovered I had somehow reconfigured part of my ship's navigation system using principles I don't remember learning. The modifications were flawless, but the knowledge of how I accomplished them is gone. Maya felt a chill of understanding. Lord Commander, I need you to record everything that happens during these episodes. Set up automatic monitoring if you can. I think the alien knowledge is trying to express itself through you, but your conscious mind can't retain the experience. Zephyr nodded slowly, then suddenly straightened as if struck by a thought. Doctor, there is something else. During these episodes, I sometimes hear voices, not my own thoughts, but whispers in languages I don't recognize. They speak of warnings, of dangers approaching from beyond the galactic rim. Maya's blood ran cold. Alien artifacts that contained warnings about unknown threats were the stuff of historical nightmares. She had read about the Epsilon incident, where an ancient beacon had driven an entire research team insane with visions of approaching doom, but those had been dismissed as psychological breaks, not actual prophecies. I'm coming back to the station, Maya said, already reaching for her equipment. We need to try something different. An hour later, Maya stood again in the docking bay with Zephyr, but this time she had brought more than medical equipment. In her hands was an experimental neural interface she had been developing for cross-species communication. It was untested, potentially dangerous, and completely outside established medical protocols. This device might allow me to interface directly with your nervous system, Maya explained, showing Zephyr the crown-like apparatus. I could experience what you're experiencing. Understand how the alien knowledge is integrated into your neural pathways. Zephyr's eyes widened in what might have been alarm. Human, such a connection could be fatal for you. The knowledge that torments me could destroy a mind not adapted for it. That's a risk I'm willing to take, Maya replied, though her hands shook slightly as she spoke. Your people have given up on you, Lord Commander. I haven't. For a long moment, Zephyr stared at her with an expression she couldn't interpret. When he finally spoke, his voice was thick with emotion. In 7 years of suffering, you are the first being to offer to share that suffering with me. Why? Maya paused, considering her answer. Because that's what healers do. We don't just treat symptoms. We stand with our patients in their darkest moments. And because I think this alien knowledge isn't just killing you, it's trying to prepare you for something. With careful movements, Maya placed the neural interface on her own head, then began positioning the connecting apparatus that would link her to Zephyr. The dragon lowered his massive head, allowing her to attach the quantum sensors to the base of his skull, where his nervous system was most accessible. If this goes wrong, Maya said, her finger hovering over the activation switch, tell Captain Rodriguez to send my research to the Xenobiology Institute. Someone needs to understand what we've learned here. And if it goes right? Zephyr asked. Maya smiled grimly. Then we save your life and maybe learn something that could save others. She pressed the activation switch. The world exploded into sensation beyond anything Maya had ever imagined. Her consciousness was suddenly vast, connected to systems of knowledge that spanned galaxies and eons. She saw star charts for regions of space that hadn't been mapped, understood technologies that defied everything she thought she knew about physics, and felt the weight of warnings from a civilization that had died before Earth's sun was born. But beneath it all was pain. Crushing. Relentless agony as Zephyr's nervous system tried to contain information meant for minds structured completely differently. Maya could feel his consciousness, noble and proud even in suffering, fighting to maintain some sense of self against the overwhelming flood of alien knowledge. Through the neural link, she began to understand the true nature of what they were facing. The artifact hadn't been a random discovery. It was a beacon, left by an ancient race as a warning about something they called the Silence, a force that consumed entire galactic civilizations by turning their own technology against them. The alien race had tried to create guardians, beings capable of retaining their knowledge and watching for signs of the Silence's return. Zephyr had accidentally triggered one of their transformation protocols, but his physiology was incompatible with the process. Maya felt herself beginning to fragment under the weight of the knowledge, but in that moment of crisis, she made a discovery that changed everything. Human neural plasticity, the very adaptability that had allowed her species to thrive in countless environments, might be the key to saving Zephyr. She could serve as a buffer, a translator between the alien knowledge and Zephyr's consciousness. It would require a permanent neural link, binding their minds together in a way that had never been attempted between species. The risks were enormous, but so was the potential reward. Through the connection, she felt Zephyr understand her realization at the same moment she did. His mental presence touched hers with a mixture of amazement and terror. Human healer. His thoughts whispered directly into her mind. What you propose would change us both forever. Some changes are worth the risk, Maya replied through the link. Even as she felt the alien knowledge beginning to stabilize as it found a new pathway through her more adaptable human neural structure. The transformation had begun, and there was no going back. The mining station's corridors reeked of industrial lubricants and unwashed bodies. Maya navigated through the maze of passages, following the directions to Docking Bay 7 where Zephyr's ship waited. The station's inhabitants, a mix of humans, Corellians, and other species, gave her curious glances but kept their distance. Word traveled fast in places like this, and news of a draconian vessel docking had cleared most of the usual traffic. Maya's medical scanner beeped softly as she approached the designated bay. The atmospheric reading showed a significantly higher temperature than standard, clearly adjusted for draconian comfort. She paused at the reinforced blast doors, suddenly aware of how small and fragile she must seem to a being evolved from apex predators. The doors hissed open, revealing a sight that took her breath away. Zephyr's ship was a masterpiece of organic curves and metallic strength, its hull designed to resemble a sleeping dragon. But even Maya's untrained eye could see something was wrong. Scorch marks marred the beautiful surface, and parts of the hull showed stress fractures that spoke of poor maintenance or desperate circumstances. Standing in the shadow of his vessel was Lord Commander Zephyr himself, and Maya had to fight the urge to step backward. Even diminished by disease, he was magnificent and terrifying. Nearly 12 feet tall, his powerful frame was covered in scales that should have gleamed like polished emeralds, but instead appeared dull and brittle. His great wings, folded against his back, trembled with barely contained exhaustion. Human healer. Zephyr's voice rumbled through the bay. You are smaller than I expected. Maya forced herself to step forward, medical training overriding instinctive fear. Size doesn't determine skill, Lord Commander. May I begin my examination? The dragon's golden eyes studied her with an intensity that made her feel transparent. You show no fear. Either you are very brave or very foolish. I'm a doctor, Maya replied simply, setting down her medical kit. Fear is a luxury I can't afford when someone needs help. Something shifted in Zephyr's expression. Surprise, perhaps, or a grudging respect. He lowered himself to the deck with careful movements, bringing his massive head closer to her level. This close, Maya could see the subtle signs of his suffering, the slight tremor in his breathing, the way his scales had lost their natural luster, and most concerning of all, the occasional flicker of confusion in his ancient eyes. Tell me about the pain, Maya said, activating her medical scanner. Start from the beginning. Zephyr's massive chest rose and fell in what might have been a sigh. It began as a whisper in my blood, a warmth that seemed pleasant at first. I thought perhaps it was a sign of approaching maturity. We dragons live long lives, and I was only approaching my 3rd century. But the warmth became heat, then fire, then agony. Maya's scanner hummed as it took readings, the data flowing across her display in streams of incomprehensible numbers. Draconian physiology was unlike anything in her medical textbooks. Their cellular structure operated on principles that seemed to defy conventional biology. The pain comes in waves, Zephyr continued, his voice growing distant. But worse than the physical torment is what it does to my mind. Sometimes I forget who I am, where I am. I have awakened to find my ship damaged and no memory of the destruction. My crew, his voice broke slightly. My crew abandoned me 2 years ago, fearing I had become mad. Maya looked up from her scanner, seeing not a fearsome predator but a being in profound isolation and pain. Lord Commander, I need to ask some difficult questions. Have you been in contact with any unknown substances? New planets, artifacts, anything unusual in the months before this began? The dragon's eyes sharpened, focusing on her with sudden intensity. Why do you ask? Because your symptoms suggest something more than a natural disease. The 7-year timeline, the specific neurological effects, the way it seems to resist treatment. I think you've been exposed to something artificial. Zephyr was quiet for a long moment, his great head turning to gaze at his damaged ship. When he spoke again, his voice carried the weight of old guilt. 7 years ago, my fleet discovered a derelict vessel in the void reaches, a ship of unknown design, clearly ancient. Against protocol, I boarded it personally. There was something compelling about it, a call I couldn't resist. Maya's scanner beeped urgently, drawing her attention to a cluster of abnormal readings in Zephyr's bloodstream. What did you find aboard the ship? Artifacts, Zephyr replied, his voice barely above a whisper. Crystalline structures that pulsed with an inner light. Beautiful beyond description. I touched one. The moment my scales made contact, I felt a surge of knowledge, of power beyond imagination, but it lasted only seconds before the pain began. Maya's mind raced as she processed this information. An alien artifact that could transfer knowledge but caused progressive deterioration? It sounded like something from a xenoarchaeology nightmare. Do you still have the artifact? Zephyr's laugh was bitter. It dissolved the moment I touched it, becoming part of me. The knowledge it contained, fragments of star charts, technological principles beyond our current understanding, secrets of civilizations that died before my species learned to fly. But the price? He gestured weakly at his deteriorating form. The artifact contained information too complex for your neural structure to process safely, Maya said. Pieces of the puzzle falling into place. It's like trying to run advanced software on primitive hardware. Eventually, the system starts breaking down. Can you cure it? The question came out as barely more than a whisper. But Maya could hear the desperate hope beneath Zephyr's carefully controlled tone. Maya studied the scanner readings, her mind working through possibilities. The alien knowledge was integrated so thoroughly into Zephyr's nervous system that removing it might kill him, but leaving it would certainly do the same, just more slowly. She needed time to think, to research, to find a solution that existed somewhere between impossible and miraculous. I need to run more tests, she said finally, and I'll need access to my ship's laboratory. Lord Commander, I want you to know, I've never treated anything like this before. I can't promise success. Zephyr's golden eyes met hers, and in them she saw not the pride of a mighty warrior, but the desperate hope of someone who had given up on survival long ago. Human healer, you are the first being in 7 years to offer even the possibility of hope. That alone is more than my own people could provide. As Maya packed her equipment, her mind was already racing ahead to the challenges that awaited. She was dealing with alien technology, unknown biology, and a patient whose death could trigger an interstellar war. But beneath the fear and uncertainty, something else burned bright. The determination that had driven her to become a healer in the first place. The next few days would test everything she thought she knew about medicine, biology, and the very nature of life itself. The medical transport ship Asclepius drifted through the void between star systems, its hull scarred from countless journeys to the galaxy's most dangerous corners. Inside the cramped medical bay, Dr. Maya Chen finished sterilizing her instruments for the 3rd time that day. At 28, she had already earned a reputation as one of humanity's most skilled xenobiologists, though few understood the personal cost of her expertise. The communication array crackled to life, startling her from her thoughts. Dr. Chen, we're receiving a priority transmission from the Draconian Empire, announced Captain Rodriguez from the bridge. They're requesting immediate medical assistance. Maya's hand stilled on her equipment. The Draconian Empire rarely contacted human vessels, let alone requested help. The ancient race of dragon-like beings considered themselves superior to most species in the galaxy, their pride as legendary as their devastating military might. For them to reach out meant something truly desperate was happening. Patch it through to my station, Maya replied, wiping her hands on a sterile cloth. The holographic display flickered, revealing a figure that made her breath catch. The being before her was unmistakably draconian, scales that shifted from deep emerald to midnight black, eyes like molten gold, and the distinctive crest that marked nobility. But something was terribly wrong. I am Lord Commander Zephyr of the Crimson Fleet, the dragon spoke, his voice a rumbling bass that resonated through the ship's speakers. We require the services of your healer. The word came out like he was tasting something bitter. Maya leaned forward, her medical training overriding any intimidation. What seems to be the problem, Lord Commander? Zephyr's golden eyes narrowed, and for a moment she thought he might terminate the connection. When he spoke again, his voice was barely above a whisper. I am dying, human. A disease has taken hold that our greatest physicians cannot cure. It has plagued me for 7 years, growing stronger with each passing cycle. The admission hung in the space between them like a physical weight. Maya had studied draconian physiology in her xenobiology courses, but actual medical cases were virtually unknown. Their species guarded their biological secrets jealously. I'll need detailed scans and symptom reports, Maya said, already reaching for her datapad. Can you transmit your medical records? A harsh laugh escaped the dragon's throat. Records? Human, if our medical caste could document this curse, they would have cured it already. What I can tell you is this. It burns through my veins like liquid fire, stealing my strength day by day. My scales lose their luster. My flight becomes labored, and my mind sometimes feels like it belongs to another. Maya felt a chill run down her spine. Mental symptoms in an unknown alien disease could mean anything from a simple neurological issue to something far more sinister. How long since the symptoms began? 7 years, 4 months, and 16 days, Zephyr replied without hesitation. I have counted everyone. The precision of his answer told Maya everything she needed to know about how this disease had consumed his life. She made rapid notes on her pad, her mind already racing through possibilities. Lord Commander, I'll need to examine you in person.
Can you meet us at a neutral station?
Zephyr's image wavered slightly, and Maya realized the dragon was trembling. The disease. It makes space travel difficult now. My ship barely maintains course. But there is a mining station in the Kepler Nebula, neutral territory. I can reach it, but the journey will likely be my last. We'll be there in 18 hours, Maya promised, already calculating jump coordinates. Lord Commander, try to rest and conserve your strength. The dragon's golden eyes fixed on her with an intensity that made her feel like prey. Human healer, I must warn you, if you fail, if this is some elaborate trap or incompetence on your part, the Draconian Empire will hold your entire species responsible. The transmission ended abruptly, leaving Maya staring at the blank display. She took a deep breath and activated the ship's intercom. Captain Rodriguez set course for mining station Omega-7 in the Kepler Nebula. Maximum burn. Maya, are you sure about this? The captain's voice crackled back. The Draconians aren't exactly known for their patience with failure. A sentient being is suffering, Captain. That's all I need to know. Maya was already pulling up everything she could find about Draconian biology on her computer. The files were frustratingly sparse. Most information came from battlefield autopsies or ancient texts that might not even be accurate. As the Asclepius jumped to hyperspace, Maya worked feverishly through the night. She cross-referenced symptoms, studied evolutionary biology, and even delved into theoretical xenopathology papers that most doctors considered pure fantasy. Something about Zephyr's description nagged at her, particularly the mental symptoms and the 7-year timeline. When she finally allowed herself a few hours of sleep, her dreams were filled with golden eyes and the echo of desperate pride in a dying dragon's voice. She woke with a theory forming in her mind, one that would either save a life or start an interstellar war. The mining station appeared on their screens like a metallic tumor, against the colorful backdrop of the nebula. It was a rough place, the kind of frontier outpost where questions weren't asked and credits talked louder than laws. Perfect neutral ground for an impossible meeting between species. As Maya gathered her medical equipment, she found her hands shaking slightly. Not from fear, but from anticipation. She was about to attempt something no human had ever done before, treat a member of the galaxy's most powerful and secretive species. The weight of potential consequences pressed down on her, but beneath that pressure burned something stronger. The desire to heal, to solve the puzzle of suffering, had driven her to the edges of known space more times than she could count. Today it might drive her beyond those edges entirely. She sealed her medical kit and headed for the docking bay, unaware that she was walking toward a discovery that would change not just 2 lives, but the relationship between entire civilizations. The Asclepius docked with Station Omega-7 with a gentle thud that echoed through the hull. Maya stood at the airlock, medical kit in hand, preparing to meet a dying dragon and challenge the impossible.